Oh, hey, we're recording. Awesome. So, officially now, welcome to a conservation conversation with the Mendocino Land Trust and Jeanne Jackson of Mendonoma Sightings. I'd like to start out by recognizing that we are coming to you from Pomo Lands up here in Mendocino County. If you are down in Sonoma County or south of there, you may be on Kayasha Pomo or Miwok lands. And we'd just like to acknowledge that these tribes stewarded these areas for millennia and continue to live here to this day. And there are many lessons to be learned about conservation from the indigenous people of yesterday and today. I think I'm going to pass it off to Conrad to give us a little briefing on what MLT is all about.
Well, thank you, Amy, and thank you so much, Jeanne, for this presentation tonight. You're an absolutely perfect person to talk in our program tonight. I think a lot of you probably know the Mendocino Land Trust, but for those few that don't, we've been around for 45 years. We're all volunteer for 25 years of that time, and then about 20 years ago with the Big River project to preserve the Big River estuary, where we played a leadership role. That's when we finally were able to start staffing up and speeding up. And now, 20 years after that, 45 years into our life, we've preserved about 20,000 acres, and a lot of that just in the last year or two. And that includes 7,000 acres at the Big River, and then another 14,000 acres of mostly conservation easements that we hold now. But a lot of you would know us because of our really great preserves up and down the coast. I'm sure a lot of you have been to Pelican Bluffs or up here in Fort Bragg. You might have been to the Seaside Creek Beach, where you can run your dog, or to Hare Creek Beach, or Navarro Point, just all kinds of places. So, and we also have a wonderful trail up at Shady Dell, right near the candelabra trees. So we do a lot with public access. In fact, we are a nonprofit that has done more coastal public access projects than any other. So that's really unique. But we also our work on, well, I mean, the whole thing that we do is we preserve access to the coast, the pocket beaches and the bluffs and the beaches. And we work to preserve habitat through conservation easements. This would include here on the coast, redwoods and the Mendocino cypress woodlands. And then inland, we're working on protecting working forests and other working lands like farms and ranches. So we kind of do it all when it comes to land conservation in the county. And we now have projects all over the county. So that's what we do. And fortunately, we're being pretty successful, and we can only do it with the help of many people. I'm sure many of them are on this call. So thank you for that. And once again, Jeanne, thank you for talking about sightings. Our donors kind of they break down into three camps. Some of them support us mostly because of the public access we provide. Others mostly because of the habitat conservation that we protect, and others because of working lands. And so, and some, of course, support us for all these reasons. So anyway, thank you, Jeanne. I'm going to turn it over to you, or back to Amy, and we'll talk to you on the other side.
All right. Thank you very much, Conrad. So Jeanne, we were going to start with just a quick little Q&A to get a little background on Jeanne for people who don't know. Jeanne, how long have you been living on the coast, and why did you choose to live here?
Rick and I moved here 26 years ago, and we started our married life in Walnut Creek. I grew up in Berkeley, and my husband in Oakland. And when we lived in Walnut Creek, we were always drawn to the Mendonoma coast, in particular Mendocino coast, to a vacation. So we loved camping at Van Dam and Russian Gulch, and also Salt Point in Sonoma County. And we also, our special event place was the Heritage House, and for a while Timber Hill Ranch. And so we came to this point in our life where we thought, can we live where we love to vacation? And we answered that question, yes, let's make it happen. And we did.
That's wonderful. What year was that?
1995.
Okay, so you've
Yeah.
got a good 25 plus
26
years here.
26 years.
Wow. How did you get the idea to do the Mendonoma Sightings column, and when did you start doing that?
See, I've been doing that for about 16 years. It's hard to believe it's been 16 years. I got the idea of doing it because there was this elderly woman who lived to our south, and she was kind of a mentor to me. She helped me with identifying mushrooms and wildflowers, and her name was Dorothy Olson, Dorothy Dar. And she never lost her joy of seeing a gray whale go by. So when the whales were headed north, she would call me and let me know. And vice versa, when they were headed south, I would call her and let her know. So it was kind of the start of sightings and sharing. And my thought was, this person who saw a gray whale breach might be the only person that got to see it. But if they shared it with the rest of us, we could all see it in our mind's eye. And that was the start of sightings. I just had to talk the publisher of our newspaper into trying it out. And that it took me some months to get him to try it, Steve McLaughlin, but he did, and it's been a big hit. And I'm lucky that it started with the advent of cell phones, where people could take photos easily when they were out in nature. So often the sightings I get are accompanied by photos.
That's amazing. Your timing was great on that. And I love how it started out as just this simple one person to one person thing, and it's expanded to be so much. I wanted to know, how has the Mendonoma Sightings brand evolved over time, and what other side projects do you have going on?
Well, what I got out of doing my column, which I do for free, but I consider it my public service, is I had all this data, because most of the photos have a time and date signature on them. So I had photos that would really give me a good feeling for when you would actually see the gray whales go by with their calves, when the first wildflower of the year would arrive. So I got a book out of it. I wrote a book called Mendonoma Sightings throughout the year, and it's a month-by-month look at nature. I paired with the photographer Craig Tooley, though I have 27 other photographers who let me use their work in the book. And we made a beautiful book, and I'm very proud of it. And then I wrote 2 children's books that I collaborated with illustrator Jeanne Wilson. And I wanted to reach children a little younger to hopefully instill in them a love of nature so that they would want to protect it. And one of my main goals is, we have a problem, and this is a problem all up and down the coast, of people driving in rivers. And the Wallala River has some pretty accessible parts, and it's been a concern and a problem. So I thought, if I could show them what lives in the river and by the river, and they would then want to protect it rather than destroy it. Even at the time, they probably didn't know the damage they were doing. So I have 2 beautiful books called Sunny Loves Spring on the California coast and Sunny Loves Summer. And the other 2 seasons will be hopefully out later this fall. Real proud of them. It's been a wonderful reward for doing my column week after week, even as much as I enjoy it.
I'm so glad to hear you're doing the other 2 seasons. I was kind of wondering about that.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add before we get going on the presentation?
The only other thing is, I have a website where I share photos. I'm only allowed a certain amount of photos in each week's column. So my website is kind of a nice pressure relief valve where I can share a series of photos or tell a broader story. And I do a near daily blog, and it's at Mendonoma. So Mendo for Mendocino, Noma for Sonoma, MendonomaSightings.com. And there's a free email blog. You can get some beautiful photos in your inbox pretty much every day.
Thank you so much. Let's start that presentation. And just a reminder, folks, if you have a question, type it in the chat or do the raise hand under the reactions setting, and we'll get to those when we can.
Great.
Let's
All
go.
right, let's get going here. A beautiful rainbow at the mouth of the Wallala River. coast lily, and a bobcat. So let's get going with Mendonoma Sightings. Okay, it's not wanting to move. So this is not something that we had a problem with before. There it goes. Okay, sunrises, this is Jeanne speaking here. Sunrises are Mother Nature's way of rewarding you for getting up early. They're very fleeting, not like the longer lasting sunsets, but they're so incredibly beautiful. This one here, Paul Brewer took of Olalla. So I wanted to show you some nests, some birds, and a big surprise for my birdhouse. Now these little chicks here are Western gull chicks. Western gulls are the only gull species that nest along our coast. Cute little guys. And this is a male pileated woodpecker. Some people call them pileated, but I was taught pileated. And you know that it's a male because the red goes all the way from the beak to the back of his head. And here is a female, and see her red only goes to the top of her head. And see that there's some holes in that branch right there, and that's the pileated working it over. They love carpenter ants. And this is a really rare photo. It's the only one I've ever received of pileated woodpecker young in their nest hole. And I believe it's the mother. It's kind of hard to see her head with the red, but I believe it's the mother who's there to feed them. This gal who got this photo, Nan Bricketto, was out hiking and it just caught her eye. And she went back the next day to further photograph them, and they had fledged, they were gone. And this is a Swainson's thrush. We have several thrushes here on the coast. The other that comes to mind is the hermit thrush. And they have beautiful calls. And this is probably a male calling for a mate. He's on a branch that has lichen all over it, just beautiful. And they have trills, these trills that go upward. It's quite beautiful to hear. I'm hearing a hermit thrush in the forest where I live in Anchor Bay. He's calling even before the sun is up, he starts his call. So I'm hoping he finds a nice mate real soon. And the fun thing about them is that they call to each other, sing to each other all day long. And this is the Swainson's thrush nest. This was photographed in the Point Arena area. Just so beautiful with the little blue eggs. And this is an Anna's hummingbird nest. And I just think it's so incredible, just a work of art. And the male Anna's hummingbird is only there to impregnate the female, and then he takes off. He's a total flake. And the female does everything. She builds the nest. Sorry, Conrad, I didn't mean to bring up the male thing again. She builds the nest and she weaves in lichen and spider webs. And I'll show you why she does that. Here she's sitting on the nest, so she just perfectly fits in it. And then her eggs hatch. And it's a good thing that that nest is expandable. So this is a Pacific slope flycatcher nest that the parents made the nest in a wreath on the front door. I believe it was Mary Sue Ittner and Bob Rudemuller. Many of you know them. And so they were kind enough to use the back door for some weeks while the little ones were raised and finally fledged. And so we have these seabirds, several different species of seabirds that come to the rocks, the offshore rocks and the bluffs of our coast. And this one here is a pelagic cormorant, and they're a very shy seabird. They're quite beautiful, and they build their nest on the steep bluff edges, and they actually attach the nest with their own guano. So it's quite an amazing building project. And I always are telling people to not feed the ravens. I know ravens are so fascinating. And one of the problems that these shyer seabirds have are with the ravens that will attack the nest and get either the eggs or the young. And in fact, we saw nesting pelagics early this year, the earliest that we have seen them. And as they were starting to build their nest, there was a raven up on the bluffs watching them. And I've learned that ravens have quite a memory and are able to plan. So I'm a little concerned about that particular area, but it's fun to see the chicks in here. And now Craig Tooley was on a surveying of some of our nesting islands. This is Wallala Point Island. It's a very important seabird colony rock just off of the north end of Sea Ranch. You can see it from Wallala Point Regional Park, the southern end of it. And this is on the west side of the rock, so of course the side that we can't see. And it's a nesting colony of Brandt's cormorants. And of course, we have ospreys that nest here. They choose to call the Mendonoma coast their home. They overwinter far to our south, so they're gone. They leave in the fall, and they usually arrive about the first day of spring. So I think of them as harbingers of spring. And here, one of the ospreys is working on the nest, and they come back to the same nest every year. I learned that ospreys mate for life. So there are 3 nests on the hillside where I live, and I get to watch one through a spotting scope, which brings me great joy. And some years we have really wild weather and the nest will get destroyed or partially destroyed. And usually the male will arrive first and he'll get to busy working on the nest, shoring it up. And the female will arrive within days, and then they work together. And right now I watched the osprey this morning, and she's sitting on the nest on eggs, I presume, because she's hunkered down. So it's great to have the ospreys here. They have a whistling call, and the male will fish for his mate. And so you can see them with all kinds of fish headed back to their nest. So this is an osprey chick that had just fledged. Kind of looks prehistoric, doesn't it, with mom. You can see that they also use a lot of lichen. It's soft for the nest, soft for the eggs and for the hatchling. So they're waiting for dinner. Like, where is Dad, Conrad? Where is the male? Okay, Dad came through. Here he is with a fish. It's not the biggest fish in the world, but it's food. So here on the right, you can just see the mother's beak. She will take little bites of the fish and feed it to her youngster, while the male sits there and says, "Boy, what a good dad I am." So
hey, Jeanne, before you
yes,
move on, can I interrupt with a question
absolutely. I
or
didn't
two?
see the hand, Amy.
That's okay. Let me see if I can remember how to, there we go, lowered it. Did you say you have 3 osprey nests on the hill by your house?
Yes, we do. And they've
Wow,
been here. One of them has been in the same nest for over 20 years.
my goodness.
Mhm.
Does there seem to be any competition or animosity in between the nests?
No, they seem to get along really well. I think that the most important thing is there enough food? And we have the Wallala River and we've had the ocean. They are good fishermen, and so it's all about if location, location, location.
Right. And if I can pass on a question from Michelle, she asked in the chat if there's been any sightings of bald eagles fighting with osprey.
I had one sighting of a bald eagle chasing an osprey. I don't know about fighting, but yes, the bald eagles are they're dominant and they're letting the rest of the birds know. I was just going to show you this wonderful bald eagle photo by Ron Bolander, which I think is so beautiful at the Wallala River. Bald eagles were very much endangered by the pesticide DDT, along with other big birds like the ospreys. And what happened with the DDT is it made their shells so thin that when the mother sat on them, she broke them. So we almost lost the bald eagles in the lower 48 states. So it's been a big success story to bring them back from this terrible situation. And so they used to be here on the Mendocino coast, but for many, many decades they were not. And we're seeing them now. The first ones arrived in Jenner, and we think that they've successfully had a chick down there. And then they arrived in Wallala about 5 years ago. And last year, we think they had a chick. I will show you a photo of what I think is the chick. And now they're being seen off of Navarro and Fort Bragg, Mendocino. So they're expanding their territory, and it's really wonderful to see. So this is a mated pair of bald eagles. Teresa Deniston and her husband Rick have a home that overlooks the Wallala River and the ocean, and they get to see these bald eagles on a regular basis. And I think the smaller, the proportion's kind of hard to see here. The female is quite a bit bigger than the male, and she's on the right. And the male here is trying to see if she's ready to mate. And I wasn't going to show any X-rated sightings tonight, but I have a lot of photos of bald eagles mating, and people like Michelle are saying, "Get a room, bald eagles." So this is a mother. This is the one that we think raised a successful chick in Wallala. So the mother is on the top and the fledgling is on the bottom. Eric Setterholm got this photo. So I believe that the female is nesting again now somewhere in the Wallala River watershed. They're secretive usually about their nests. Their nests are more inland, but by water, by fish. Ospreys love lampreys. Lampreys are an eel-like fish that live in our rivers. Amy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I'm raising my hand on behalf of Teresa, who has a sighting to report I think you will enjoy hearing. She
Awesome.
saw a bald eagle eating a raven from Serendipity Wallala River.
Yes, she actually sent me that photo, and it was interesting because ravens don't have too many predators, and we wondered if a bald eagle would take a raven, and Teresa got proof that they will. So yep,
Yeah,
good sighting, Teresa.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Denise and Bill said they saw a bald eagle just yesterday flying over their house in Irish Beach. And their neighbor got a picture of one in his front yard a few weeks ago.
And did they send it to me for sightings? So I wanted to show you the comparison of how much bigger a bald eagle is than a common raven. Ravens are pretty darn big, and we have ravens here on the coast, not crows. Crows are their inland cousins, and they're a bit smaller. So you can see a bald eagle, if he wants to take a raven, he sure wouldn't have any trouble. So this is a 3+-year-old bald eagle that visited the Wallala River, and as they do expand their territory, there will be these younger eagles appearing and maybe staking out territory of their own. Bald eagle isn't mature until about their 5th year, and that's when their head turns totally white. Now, the female Wallala bald eagle still has a few black feathers in her hair, and she still does even this year, though we think she had a chick last year. Maybe it's just an anomaly that she's going to have a few dark feathers. So it's kind of fun to see the young ones. And this is a bald eagle that actually arrived in Irish Beach about a week ago and was photographed. And then I mentioned it in my column, and this same bald eagle showed up down near Sea Ranch, and Eric Setterholm got this photo. And I was talking with Amy Rugg, his partner, and she told me that there are other, I guess what I'm getting at was this a birth defect? Did he have an injury? What happened to this bald eagle to lose an eye? And Amy said other photos show that there are some indentations on its head. So we think maybe a great horned owl attacked it at one time, and he managed to survive. He was seen and photographed by Eric eating a fish, so he's able to feed himself and overcome this deformity. Something you don't see every day. Now, I took this photo, and I'm not a bird. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, before we move on from eagles, we got a couple more questions.
Sure.
And this is actually going back to ospreys. Someone asked where they winter.
Well, they winter far to our south, in South America. They go a long ways to overwinter. I imagine that it has to do, again, location, food, and the proper, more milder. Why don't they stay here? We have a pretty mild winter. I don't know the answer to that. We do occasionally have an osprey overwinter here. I've had sightings of that, but the vast majority of them just take off, and usually around the first day of autumn.
We all like to travel.
That's right.
This is a very interesting question. Someone asked, why are there no crows on the coast? They obviously coexist with the ravens inland. Do you have any insight on that?
I don't, and there's someone on this in this group I saw come in, Diane Hitchrow. Diane, do you know the answer to that? Diane is my bird expert for my column. So if you could unmute, Diane, if you have the answer, that would be great.
I don't have a specific answer except that there are many fewer ravens inland. They still prefer the wilder mountaintop areas where the crows are much more valley floor in large numbers together. And so it probably has to do with the terrain and the availability of food.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you.
Anything
We'll
else?
let you move on now, Jeannie.
Okay. Goodbye, one-eyed bald eagle. So as I said, I'm not a bird expert. I have wonderful people like Diane to help me. And I don't think the birders would have believed me if I told them that sandhill cranes had flown over my house. It was a warm day and I heard them. I mean, they were just talking to each other and making quite a racket as they came by. So we don't see them too often here on the coast. I actually saw a couple when I was in Mendocino one year, just fly over the hamlet of Mendocino, and my husband and I got in the car and tried to follow them and get some good photos. But it's really wonderful to have this sighting. So we do have white-tailed kites here, and they're real fun to watch and watch them hunting in meadows. Walla Point Regional Park is a great place to see them. I imagine Big River would be a good place too. They hover in the air. They use air currents to hover in place, and they're looking for a really tasty rodent. And I'm going to show you one of my rarer photos. Siegfried Matul got this one some years ago of a male kite passing a vole in midair to his mate. One of their little bonding experiences. So quite an unusual photo. Cool, huh?
Yeah.
So this is just kind of, I just want to show you, this one's fun. This donkey is named Jack. He's on Fern Fideli's ranch in the Point Arena area. And every year ravens come and pull hair out of his rump. And he's so mellow that he lets them do it. I mean, there's 2 ravens on his back and he's still mellow. So they're using it for their nests. And I asked Fern not too long ago, are they working over Jack again this year? And she says, oh yes, they're doing it again. Now this is a really, really rare photo. Turkey vultures nest in very secluded forests. And Terry Fardresher was out with her dogs, and one of her dogs noticed or smelled this young turkey vulture. It's the only photo in the 16 years that I've gotten of one at its nest. The nest was inside this old redwood snag. So it's fun to be able to show it to you. The face only a mother could love. Now, would you walk down the street? You know, it gives me pause. I don't think I'd walk down the street with a turkey vulture. So this is the nest of newly hatched Steller's jays. And then I want to show you what they look like just 12 days later. Look at all those feathers. It's amazing, really amazing in such a short time. And I like to think this little fledgling jay is shouting for its mother. Or maybe it's an opera singer. So this was our favorite Laysan albatross. We named him Al or Alice. We never found out if it was a male or a female. We needed to get a feather and have DNA testing done on it. This Laysan albatross was very unusual in that it visited Point Arena Harbor for many years. And then all of a sudden, he didn't visit anymore. And so the theory is maybe he was a young bird. These birds live to be as long as humans. There's the wisdom, the albatross on Laysan Island, who's still giving birth in her 60s. So maybe he or she became mature and then went to breed on islands far away. But we have fond memories of Al. There's a nice mural at the Point Arena Pier about this bird. And birders would come from all over the world to see this bird because you normally have to take a pelagic trip, a seagoing trip, to be able to see one. Beautiful bird. And he loved surfers. So here's a surfer coming in, and Al would go up and greet them, and it was quite the celebrity. We miss you. So this is my birdhouse. Rick's in my birdhouse, and we're walking down our drive, and we look up and what the heck happened to our birdhouse? Well, a paper wasp nest that they papered over our birdhouse to make a nest. And you can see there's a wasp going in the bird entrance hole, and there's another one on the paper. And this is amazing substance. It is paper-like, it's light. And so we watched it for a while, and then one day we came down and something had destroyed it. No more wasp nest in our birdhouse. And so it takes a special creature to be able to take a paper wasp nest, and this is the creature. They're called spotted skunks. Old timers tend to call them civet cats, but we don't have civet cats here in this area, but we do have a second species of skunk, a smaller skunk with spots rather than stripes, and they're really good climbers. This particular skunk got caught in a trash can, and I believe it was John Bauer who photographed it, and I'm really glad he did so we can see this cute little guy. So moving on to wildflowers. Got a Douglas iris and a trillium. So we have a wonderful plant that is endemic to Sonoma and Mendocino counties. Endemic means it's not found anywhere else, it's only found here, and it's called a fringe corn lily. So on the left of the slide, those are fringe corn lily leaves emerging, and they emerge this time of year. You can see them at Wallowa Point Park, you can see them at Cook's Beach. I'm wondering if they grow along Big River. I don't remember seeing them there, but they very well could. But for years, I didn't see the blooms because I didn't realize how long it took for the blooms to come. The blooms come in late summer. And by the time the blooms arrive, the leaves are desiccated with insects have fed on them because, you know, native plants feed native insects. It's really important. So they have beautiful white flowers in the late summer, and it's a real treat to see them. So Cook's Beach, they grow near in moisture. There's a little creek that goes down to Cook's Beach, and that's one of the reasons why they're there. Wallowa Point Park is by the Wallowa River. So look for them where there are seeps and wetlands. This is a rare wildflower called the King Gentian. I understand there's a small group of them at the Point Arena Stornetta lands. And here are a group of them. They're quite small because this is the crab spider. So it kind of gives you a little bit of perspective with the yellow crab spider there. So this is a wildflower called self-heal, and it's not unusual. It grows in warmer, sunny spots. I have some growing out in the front of our property. But what is interesting is this one photo when the flowers had left, it left an alien face showing. It's just pretty cool. So I wanted to show you the Calypso orchids. Calypso orchids grow in undisturbed forest. And Amy Rube took this photo. And if you look at the forest duff, you can see the single leaf. That appears first, and it's easier to see than the flower, which is quite tiny. I like to say that our wildflowers, for the most part, are Mother Nature's way of making sure you're paying attention. So they're in redwood forest, mixed forest. They need a fungus in the soil to survive. They have a symbiotic relationship with this fungus, so you can't not transplant them. Don't even try. Just enjoy them. And this is a close-up that Craig took of the flower. Isn't that just amazingly beautiful? Wow, almost looks like a shell, a seashell. And this is a very rare white calypso orchid that we just recently found. Chris Peckel and I took a walk on the Salal Trail a couple of weeks ago, and I saw she joined this group today. So hello, Chris. And she was the one that spotted it. There was a normal color calypso orchid and this pure white one. Everything is white about it, the stem and the leaf and the flower. So it was wonderful to see. Right along the Salal Trail. The Salal Trail starts from the first parking lot of Wallala Point Regional Park. A lot of people don't know about it, but it's a beautiful trail. And I do have directions on my website on how to find it. There's cascades at the Salal Creek. So it's a real special place to visit. And I have never seen one of these flowers, so I'm including it for myself. Wild stream orchids. I understand that they bloom on the upper reaches of the Wallala River and the Garcia River, also called the Padaha. I bet they do on the Big River and other Navarro and so on. A beautiful orchid, like it is an orchid, beautiful orchid blooming wild. And so we have a lot of different orchids on the coast, our native wildflowers, but this one has to be the most unusual, a phantom orchid. And it must be just amazing to come across this in the forest, almost like seeing a ghost, a beautiful ghost. And this is kind of rare because this wild heliotrope on the left is the normal color green, but it has a branch where it's white, so it's leucistic or albino. It's a very unusual, very rare situation for this plant. Obviously, it grows in the stones along the rivers. Oh, so this is my find. I'm very proud of these. These are my babies. Last year, my brother-in-law, Mel Smith, found some of these rare ground cones on a neighboring property. And this neighboring property, we share some very unusual parasitic plants called sugar sticks, quite beautiful. And also the area has matsutake mushrooms in the winter. So I thought, you know, we have to have some on our property. And I took a trail in the opposite direction that I normally take it 2 weeks ago, and I found these ground cones. And I thought that when I saw them, they were closed up more, and they looked just like a fir cone. And I actually kind of poked it with my walking stick, thinking it was too perfectly set up. And this plant went doing, and I realized, oh, Jeannie, you found one of the rare ground cones. And Peter Bay is my botany expert, and he told me a sighting of these is rarer than a UFO. Yeah, so pretty fun. We'll be watching it evolve as the weeks go by. They're about 2 inches high. And what you're seeing on the ground is the hill that we live on has a lot of sandstone, and this is little individual sandstone pieces. So the earliest blooming wildflower on our coast is the slink pod. And they're really hard to see. They can bloom in December. This year they bloomed later in January. So here we're all looking for this brown, tiny little flower, and we found one. So they're rather exquisite. Their other common name is terrible. It's called fetid adder's tongue. So most people never see them because they're blooming when the weather's stormy and you just don't think there's anything out there. So if you see their leaves, this is their leaves. They're in the lily family, and the leaves are quite large in comparison to their flower. They're huge, and they're mottled. So they come up pretty much in the same place every year. So if you see these leaves now, just give yourself a mental note to look for the flower much earlier in the year. And if you can see all those stems that are kind of hanging down, twisting down, those were individual flowers. And I swear they only are up for about a day. And then they form a pod on their flower end, and they just crash to the ground, hence their common name, slink pod. This is just some beautiful surf grass off of the Point Arena Stornetta lands. Many of us have been enjoying discovering the wonders of this absolutely magnificent place that's now protected as open space for all. And it's this area of the lands is a nursery for lots of creatures that live in the tidal zone, intertidal zone. And I included this picture because I just thought it was so beautiful. It's actually a stalk of, or a little piece of rosemary. And I'm sorry that my phone is going off. Please excuse that. These are actually dewdrops that are clinging to the rosemary piece. Isn't it just beautiful macro photography? And so I'm moving on to a few reptiles. Yes, I see a
Before you
hand.
move all the way on, can I pass on a few flower comments?
Absolutely.
Laura Baker wanted to let us know that fringed corn lilies can also be found in the upland portion of Mill Bend.
Great, great.
A lot of people really liked your ground cone. And Larry wants us to know that Camp 1 on the Noyo River is a great place to see the adders.
Oh, great. Good to know.
And I think Conrad also has something to add.
Sure. I just really appreciate all this, all these great sightings of these beautiful plants and rare plants. And I just wanted to mention that that's one of the first things we do when we start talking to a landowner. A landowner comes to us and they want to preserve their land, is we immediately scamper out there and do a full inventory, looking for the rarest things we can find, because we can then go out and seek funding from the state in order to preserve that land. So, these beautiful little jewels in the woods, also can help us protect really special places.
That's great. That's great. If we're done with wildflowers, then we'll move on to a few reptiles. This is one of my favorite little frogs. It used to be called a chorus frog, a tree frog, and for some reason they renamed it to a Sierra tree frog. But look at the fingers. They have little suction fingers, so they're able to climb amazingly well. And these very small tree frogs, you can always tell them by that black line that goes from the front of its mouth and then on the other side of its eye. And they're quite loud for being so small. They have a really big call, the males. They have a big vocal sac under the throat. And it's amazing to see them giving their calls and hearing them give their calls. I remember one day I had one in our courtyard, and Irene Leidner came over and she accused me of having a tape recording of this sound, as it was so loud and reverberating. But I wanted to show you how very tiny they are, just newly hatched. Just, isn't that exquisite? So we have in the Wallala River, which I'm most familiar with, we have Western pond turtles, and this happens to be a juvenile, so it's quite small, being held in the hand of Liam Erickson. And here is a full-grown Western pond turtle. Unless you're very quiet as you're kayaking or walking along the river, you won't see them. They're very shy, and usually what you'll hear is the plop of them going off a nice sunny rock in the river, and them, diving into the river so to escape you. It's wonderful to see them, and they are one of the many inhabitants of our local rivers. We have this Western aquatic garter snake that is able to live in the river and on land also. One time my sister Linda Bostwick got a photo of one eating a fish, and I tried to find that photo, Linda, and I couldn't find it in time for today, but next time it's quite an interesting photo. But the snakes that we have immediately on the coast are non-venomous. Yes, there are rattlesnakes that are a little ways inland, but the few rattlesnakes that we ever see are, both of them were dead. One of them we think was brought down by a logging truck. The other one was washed down the Wallala River. So it's just a little too cool for them right on the coast. I hope climate change doesn't change that, but at least we don't have to worry about the local snakes right here along the coast. This is just a funny photo of this Western toad. This happened to be when the Giants were in the World Series, and this was at Starcross. Some of you know about Starcross on Annapolis Road. And they were watching the Giants game and they saw this Western toad looking in the window. So we think he was a Giants fan. And here's a photo of little newly hatched Western toads. And there are 4 of them. Can you see them all? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is one of the things I show children when I'm asked to speak at schools in normal times, non-COVID times. I show them what lives in and alongside the river in the hopes of stopping them from driving any vehicle or ATV in a river. It's so damaging. And there's no way you could see these little guys. They look like stones. And so I'm moving on now to creatures of the land. This is a beautiful bobcat. And they have, you see the ears, they have tufts on the tips of their ears, and they have a short bobbed tail. So sometimes people mix bobcats up with mountain lions, but if you would first of all pay attention to the size, bobcat's about the size of a medium to large size house cat, whereas a mountain lion is much more huge. I will show you a mountain lion photo soon. I wanted to tell you about bobcat coats. Each bobcat coat is distinctive unto itself, like our fingerprints are to us. So technically you could identify bobcats by their markings, and I'm wondering if anyone has done that. They hunt, you find them in meadows, in grassy meadows. They hunt for rodents. And this is another creature that we share the coast with, a long-tailed weasel. This actually was seen at the rental houses at the Point Arena Lighthouse by one of their people staying there, Dennis Latona, and he shared it with me, and I can get to share it with you. These weasels are quite ferocious animals, and they will grab their prey and drag it down their den hole. So they're cute, but they're pretty ferocious. And here's another creature that's pretty ferocious too. This is a juvenile American badger. It's a fairly rare sighting. We don't see too many of them, so we cherish the sighting when we see them. This one had fallen off the bluff near Salt Point State Park. And Craig and his wife, Rita Peck, are trained in wildlife rescue, and they had a kennel or wire cage in their vehicle. So they saw this little one, and so they decided they would rescue it and haul it back up the cliff to where it should be. Well, they could not get it in the crate. And I think it was a Fish and Wildlife fellow stopped by to help them. And the 3 of them, it took 3 of them to get a juvenile badger into the crate. And then they did hike up with it and put it on the bluff for it to be reunited with its mom. So pretty fun sighting. We've had a sighting of one on the Sea Ranch. They have huge mounds. That's how we knew there was a badger there, over 3 feet across. And just kind of a fun photo of a raccoon mother moving one of her kittens. She didn't, maybe it's something with, she thought they were in danger and needed to be moved. And this is a gray fox kit. This is an absolute newborn. It probably was the runt. Again, this is Craig Tooley's work. He's the one I collaborated with on my Mendonoma Sightings book. In fact, this photo that he took here, I love so much, I chose it for the cover of my book. And Craig had entered it in our Art in the Redwoods at the Molalla Art Center, and he entitled it Enlightenment. And it actually was sitting on top of his woodshed, looking up into the sun. It's so cute. And we're going to see the first gray fox kit soon. We've seen the first fawns. They arrived last Tuesday, and we'll be seeing the gray fox kit. There's nothing more fun than having a den of them near where you live. And I'm always jealous when I hear of that. Woodsheds seem to be one of their favorite places to have a litter. There was a building in Wallala, but they were under 1 year. So maybe this year will be my year to have one here. And so I wanted to show you why they're also called tree foxes. They're able to climb. It's very steep. They can even climb a telephone pole. Quite amazing. And look at the long tail. So there's kind of a funny story about this one. This is a mother fox, and she was nursing her young, and it was a warm day. It was Linda Osterman, I believe, that got this photo. And this mother had it with her litter, said no more. And she climbed into this bird bath, and she just, she cooled off that way and got away from her little kits. And she looks pretty blissful, I think. A lot of mothers can probably relate. So here is one of the photos of one of the white fawns. Since Rick and I moved here 26 years ago, there have been 3 white fawns. And this one was photographed by Roland Coombs. And you can see it has some spots on its back. It's not albino, it's got normal color eyes, and it's got the pink ears. So what it is considered, Fish and Wildlife told me, they consider them towheads. It's like a baby born with platinum hair, like I was, and then it turns a color as the child ages. So this white fawn did eventually color up some, but never as much as its sibling. And here's a photo of the white fawn with its normal colored sibling. So we were told that a buck must have a recessive gene for this particular mutation. And of course, the white fawn is very vulnerable, losing its camouflage. But amazingly, all of the white fawns survived. And one of them turned out to be a doe who actually had a white fawn herself. And that's the last white fawn we've seen. It's been maybe 5 or 6 years since we've seen one. So it cycles, and maybe we'll be blessed to see one again. One woman, Peggy Mee, described seeing the white fawn as seeing a magical being, and that's how it feels. And this is just a particularly pretty, beautiful photo that Rick Denniston took some years ago. He actually entered it in a photo contest that I did with Mendonoma Sightings in conjunction with Friends of Wallala River. And it's just beautiful where it's raining. You can see raindrops in the river and their reflection. And a lot of people don't realize that deer can swim, but here's a buck entering the ocean. And they're good swimmers. They swim across the Wallala River, and I'm sure they swim across our other coast rivers. And they also swim in the ocean. One of our surfers was out trying to catch a wave in the Point Arena area when a big buck swam by him and went on shore. And he was really surprised. Okay, here we have the mountain lion. Now, Cece Case lives in Wallala, and she was sitting at her desk, and she looked up and saw this. Now, can you imagine how you would feel if you looked out your window and right there, this is a female mountain lion. Here's another photo that Cece took. Look at those big paws. So in conjunction with the photo of that bobcat, there's no tufted ears, and there's a very, very long tail. And of course, they're enormous. Yes, Amy?
I wanted to share something that Michelle typed into the chat back when we were talking about bobcats. She said, a friend in Point Arena said a cougar ate their guinea hens, but she's wondering if it would be more likely a bobcat. They reported that the cat jumped straight up in the air.
I think it's very likely it was a bobcat. I think it's more likely, though. Mountain lions will take a lot of different things. It could have been, you would think you could get maybe a paw print of it. Mountain lions, when they walk, their claws are retracted, so they don't show any claw marks. So that's a way to tell a mountain lion track from a big dog track. The dogs will have their claws. Bobcat, I have a picture of a bobcat climbing the fence at the B. Byron Preserve, the fence that houses the giraffes. So it's really a huge, tall fence. And Judy Mello told me, well, if the bobcat actually got in, the giraffes would have killed it. So I never heard what happened, but they are excellent climbers. I have friends who have a chicken coop up on the Wallala Ridge, Catherine Miller and Hal Ferguson. And they did have a mountain lion come and take a old rooster and a chicken. So it's hard to say, Michelle, which one it was. Okay, well, we'll leave this beautiful female behind and we'll move on to a bear track. Kind of fun to see a bear track in the mud. We share the coast with black bears and they are the more docile bears. We have a cinnamon colored bear. They're still also considered a black bear, but there are some that are cinnamon colored. And this one here was seen at the Fort Bragg Hospital. And I wondered, why is he smiling? What is he doing there? So apparently there's a ravine close by the hospital. And after he looked in the door and got his picture taken, he then ambled back into the ravine and disappeared. But quite an amazing sighting, huh? That would make my day. Black bears have really good memories for food. And so I try to urge people to be smart about their garbage cans. And one fellow had an outdoor cooler or a freezer, and a black bear found it. And he actually got a deprivation permit to kill the bear. And I'm thinking, come on, you're supposed to be the smart person here. Move your freezer inside. And they have very good memories for where they found food. So you don't want to make a bear a problem bear. We want them to be safe and wild. And so moving on to a few bugs. This one here is a praying mantis. Unbelievably beautiful when you get the macro photography. These are quite amazing creatures. The female, the male will mate with the female, and she often will bite his head off afterwards as a way to feed her growing young. So it's really not easy to be a male praying mantis. Conrad probably doesn't want to do that. No. So this is one of our beautiful moths called an elegant sheep moth. And they're normally a summertime moth, but I had an early sighting of one from Roxanne Holmes. So they've already appeared here. And again, I don't know if this is changes because of climate change and we're seeing things that are coming earlier, or if it's just an anomaly from our very low rain year. It's to be determined. It's going to take some time to figure it out. But look at the beautiful antenna on the top. They're just little feathers on either side. It's beautiful. Now, this is kind of a fun bug. It's called the 10-lined beetle. And the woman who sent it to me, it was her quote. She says, this bug is crawling towards me. It's just fun to see. And it does have 10 lines on it. Mother Nature was having fun with her painting that day. And this, of course, is a dragonfly. It's a blue dasher. And just look at the exquisite markings on it. I love dragonflies, and we have many different ones here. And they are harbingers of fall. And a good place to see them is any still water. So in Wallala, that would be Bower Park. Great place to see them. They're really efficient little hunters. They lay their eggs in still water. And then we're moving on to some of the creatures of the sea. The top is a nudibranch and one of our colorful sea slugs, and then a purple sea urchin. This is the creature that has gotten out of control population-wise with the decline of the sea stars. It's put things out of balance. And we're seeing more sea stars now. So we're hoping that things will get in balance in the ocean a little bit better soon. One of the creatures that's suffering are the abalone, because the sea urchins will eat everything, including the kelp. And they're just voracious. They can survive on pretty much anything. So this is one of the beautiful nudibranchs that we have. So it's pronounced as if it was spelled B-R-A-N-K rather than C-H. It's a clown dorid. Its face is in the lower right corner. And Ken Bailey is an underwater photographer, and he took these photos of the nudibranchs that I'm sharing today. And they're just fantastically colored. And I had no idea that we had these so-called sea slugs that are just so beautiful and so incredible in the ocean. And so this is called a by the wind sailor, or Velella velella. And what's interesting, of course, it's gorgeous, and they're travelers of the open ocean, and they're at the whim of the breeze. So what Mother Nature did was she made this sail, the top piece on this creature, tilt, half of them tilt one way and half of them tilt the other, because if there's a major wind event, they get blown up onto the beach and they die. So I thought it was amazingly clever that half of them then would survive this wind event because of the way their sail was tilted. So this poor by the wind sailor, the blue creature on the bottom, was blown into a tide pool and right into the mouth of a sea anemone. We've got the food chain in action here. And one of the creatures that live in the intertidal zone is called the pelagic tunicate. And they are an invertebrate that attaches to rocks and sometimes docks and so on. And they're part of the food chain, an important part. Sometimes you'll see them on the beach, washed up. And I just wanted to show you this photo of an abalone diver in times when you could dive for abalone, and now it's closed. And you can see on the bottom right, there are two abalones. And then there's an ochre sea star to the left, right near his gauge. I hope that I hope that the abalone will recover and the sport can continue, because the abalone divers are very avid, and they're real stewards of the sea. They love the sea, and they want to see it. They want to see it done right. So can you see this? It's like a ghost fish in the ocean. This is a mula mula. It's on the upper right, and it has pink lips. It's like it's wearing pink lipstick. And it's a more tropical fish, but this was seen right off of Anchor Bay by a fisherman, Richard Lewis, and he got this photo to prove that these tropical fish do sometimes visit here. And it's interesting. I just remembered that I learned about mula mulas, that they have parasites on their skin that other fish will remove. And sometimes they'll come to the surface, and gulls will take off the hardest ones, the most embedded ones on their skin. So it's really quite an amazing symbiotic relationship that they have with other fish and with gulls. And this is a rhesus dolphin, Ron LaValle, who's up in the Mendocino area. Has some wonderful photos that he shared with me over the years. Now the rhesus dolphins, they follow the Humboldt squid. And so these marks on the dolphin are actually from the beaks of squid. So it almost looks like a work of art, but it is from their interactions with the squid, which they hunt. And bottlenose dolphins have been making their way northward in recent years. And we're really excited about it. And we're seeing them every year now for about the past 4 or 5 years. And they've gone as far up as Puget Sound. So they really are expanding their territory dramatically. And they seem to enjoy surfing. So here's a group of them catching a wave. I wonder if they like Beach Boy songs. And this again is Ron LaValle's work, a Pacific white-sided dolphin. They're amazingly acrobatic. And Ron did a series, which I'll show you here, showing a leap of this dolphin. So it goes from the left, upper left, and ends in the upper, lower right with a big splash. This is a rare photo of a northern right whale dolphin. I think it's the only sighting I've had of one off of our coast, and I believe it was Jody, and I'm blanking on her last name, and she was on a pelagic trip when she saw it. And of course, this is a gray whale, and this is a gray whale calf. And one of the ways you can tell a calf, of course, it's smaller. If you saw it next to its mother, you'd have a good clue. But they have a stubbier head, and it elongates as they grow. And it also has no barnacles on it. So another way to tell that it's a young one. And the young gray whale calves seem to love to breach. And they seem to have a lot of joy, and they have exuberance like all young creatures. And we're just seeing the first gray whale calves go by. Scott and Tree Mercer, I believe they're in on this presentation tonight. There are whale experts, and they sit out on the bluffs at the Point Arena Lighthouse and for hours every day when conditions allow. And so we were really excited this week that they saw the first mother calf pairs going by. Our gray whales are struggling this year. The numbers are down, so we're keeping a close eye on what's going on there. Their feeding grounds conditions are changing up in the Arctic, and they make the longest migration. It's just incredible that they swim all the way from the Arctic Circle down to Baja California, the lagoons, where they give birth and where they mate, and then they swim all the way back up to the Arctic again. And the females do not feed during the whole migration. So here she has given birth. She's nursing her young like a human mother would with her rich milk, and she needs to get back to the Arctic where she can feed. And so this is a wonderful photo of a spy hopping gray whale. This is when the gray whale's head comes out of the water vertically, and it's very close to shore. I believe this was taken by Wallala Point Beach, and you can see sightings like this from the Wallala Bluff Trail, a wonderful place to see wildlife. Actually, I'm going to be there Saturday morning from 10 to noon for a nature challenge this Saturday. So if you'd like to join me and take a look through some scopes and binoculars and see what we're seeing, that would be great. So what they think with spy hopping is that the whale is either just taking a look around because the eye is always exposed in a spy hop, or it's listening for the surf break to get its bearings. My vote is for the first, and it might be both. It might be several reasons that it's spy hopping, but a really fun photo of something special to see. And this is an aerial photo that Craig Tooley got of migrating gray whales. So you can see one is submerged and two are above the surface. Kind of fun to see from an airplane. And then here's why the humpback is called a humpback, a humpback whale. We see the humpbacks in the summer and the fall. We haven't had any sightings of them yet so far this year, but it's early. Scott and Tree did have a sighting of 4 finback whales this past week, and they were headed south, which was really puzzling to them. The finback whales are the second largest whale after the blue whale. So here's the tongue. You can see the pink tongue of the humpback whale, a really wonderful photo that Craig got. And again, Craig comes through in the airplane with a picture of a blue whale, and they are the largest creature on Earth. They are considered to be the largest creature ever to have lived on Earth. In researching for my book, I learned that when a blue whale's mouth is fully open, a bull elephant can fit inside. It's just amazing. And here they eat some of the tiniest creatures in the ocean, krill. And so moving on, because I could keep you here all night with wonderful sightings, but I'm moving on to a little fungus among us. And this is one of my favorite mushrooms, an edible mushroom called the hedgehog. And it's considered a beginner's mushroom because there's no bad lookalike. And if you look under the cap where the spider is, you can see rather than gills, it has little teeth that hang down. And they are associated with tan oak. So look for them in tan oak forests in the wintertime. They did not bloom this year. No fruiting of hedgehogs on my property. And I didn't hear of more than just a handful and others. So our low rainfall just did them in this year. And I wanted to show you a very unusual, very rare one to see in the wilds. And it's just so incredible that it oozes this red moisture. And the nickname is strawberries and cream. I have never seen one myself, but I was sent this photo of one. So I wanted to show you it, something to look for in the deep forest. And this is my husband's foot here, showing you some perspective. This is a dyer's polypore, and this is a pretty fresh one. And their job in nature is to decompose dead wood. So when a tree falls in the forest, oftentimes this mushroom and other polypores will arrive to do its job. But it also is valued by people who dye yarn. And when it's young, like this one, it dyes yarn a beautiful yellow. And as it ages, it dyes it orange. And when it's aged, it dyes it brown. Dyers, D-Y-E-R''S polypore. And so I wanted to show you some of the beautiful, the unusual, and a scary wave. Now, this is the waterfall at the Point Arena Stornetta Lands that if we've had enough rain, it's a beautiful waterfall to find. I do have directions on my website on how to find it. It's a bit of a hike, and you do have to cross the creek. And it's a little, you would want to bring a walking stick to give yourself a little stability. But you, when you're able to find this, it's really fun, and you can get a beautiful view of the lighthouse. I'm sorry, I don't have a photo to show you that. I wanted to show you a couple of our newer public access places. And this one is Cook's Beach. This is fairly close to St. Oars in Wallala. It's a pocket beach, so it's real safe and a beautiful place to go to watch the sunset. And this is Hearn Gulch. This is near mile marker 10 in Mendocino County, excuse me. And you can see by Paul's photo that it has a sea tunnel on the left, and he caught the setting sun glowing through the sea tunnel. And on the right, there's a blowhole. So when there's enough wave action, that blowhole goes off. And if you're standing on the bluffs or down on this beach, it's really amazing to feel the vibrations of the blowhole going off. And then there's the arches off of the Point Arena Stornetta Lands. This is about halfway between the city entrance by Point Arena City Hall and the lighthouse entrance, or the entrance just a ways away from the lighthouse. And it's really fun to find and see these arches. And then there's the Pelican Bluffs. Thank you, Mendocino Land Trust. We love you, MLT. Yay, I see Linda cheering, others cheering. This is our newest public access point here on the southern Mendocino coast. It's a few miles south of Point Arena. And Teresa Dennison got these photos. She told me that she and Rick took the additional trail to the south along the bluffs, and they saw this beautiful sight. And here's another picture of some of the bluffs that you can see at Pelican Bluffs. We've had peregrine falcon sightings here. I almost included a photo of a chick that was seen at Pelican Bluffs last year, but it's nice to know that they're there. And actually the day that Rick and I, my husband and I, took a walk with Linda and Mel just before the COVID shutdown, we came here and we heard and saw peregrine falcons in the sky. And we think there was a nest somewhere close by. And so what else can you see at Pelican Bluffs? Well, you can find an owl pellet. I believe it was Dan Lewis that found this. And owl pellets are, what the owl can't digest. And after Dan looked at it, he said he left it alongside the trail for someone else to find. And then, of course, it's a great place to see sunsets. And we have a very talented photographer, Anne Mary Schaefer, and you can see some paintbrush in the foreground and just the beautiful sunset at Pelican Bluffs. So thank you, Mendocino Land Trust. We love you, and we really, really appreciate this new access. And it's so much bigger than it looks from the highway. And it has multiple different habitats. It has a pine forest in there. It has meadows. It has multitudes of wildflowers. So it's a really special spot. So I'm surprising my sister with a picture of her with a fossil. She's covering her eyes. Unfortunately, this fossil eroded in a storm some years ago, but perhaps other fossils will appear. They're sure to appear as the bluffs continue to erode. But it was really fun. The only way you could see this fossil was to go at very low tide. Otherwise, it was protected by the ocean. Yeah, you're starring in it, Linda. She's covering her eyes again. And so other things you can find on the beach, it would be a kind of a rare find, but Don Phillips found this big whale bone at Manchester Beach, one of my favorite beaches here. He's pretty proud. And this is my brother-in-law, Mel, who has a collection of a lifetime of these Asian fishing floats. So these floats were used by Japanese and other fishermen in years past. And as for whatever reason they came loose in storms or for whatever reason, they would travel many thousands of miles and then come down the coast of Oregon, Washington, Oregon, and onto California beaches. So they're more rare as the years go by because they don't use them anymore. So it's really fun to see Mel's collection. And they are glass. And they didn't break in their long journey. So I love this photo. This is a rock that's offshore of the northern end of Wallala, and it's called Castle Rock. My friend Carolyn Andre, who's on this call, asked me, why is it called Castle Rock? And then started laughing. But this wave that's coming up to it, it looks like a monster, and maybe it's a Cookie Monster and it's going to hug Castle Rock. I don't know, but you can see how the wave action will be working against this rock formation, and one of these days it will be no more. But it's fun to see now. And I just wanted to show you some of our beautiful rainbows, and this is so unusual that this rainbow formed late in the day. I'm not quite sure how this is even possible, but you can see the lights of the Sea Ranch, and it must have been very rare conditions that allowed a late day rainbow. And this is called a fire rainbow, or more properly, a circumhorizontal arc. They're pretty rare. I took this one, so I guess I should say I'm proud that I got one. It all has to do with light refraction off of crystals and the different types of clouds. And again, this is one of my photos of a sun pillar that I took from our deck, and just a fun phenomenon that appears pretty rarely. And here is I've got a couple photos of fog bows for you. Fog bows are also called white rainbows, and they're seen in the morning, though I'm told by Peggy Berryhill that you can see them in other times of the day, but all the ones that I've received and the few that I've seen have been in the morning hours. So you look for a receding fog bank, and possibly you'll get this picture, you get this sighting of a fog bow. And here's another photo recently taken by Grace O'Malley down off of Stillwater Cove. I just thought it was so beautiful, arching across. And then here is a photo that Mark Hancock took from the top of the Point Arena Lighthouse Tower. And he was showing a pair of tourists the sights. And when this fog bow appeared, they had never even heard of a fog bow. And then to get to see one was really quite amazing. And so then I'm going to show you some of the rare optical illusions that have to do with light refraction. And this is that famous elusive green flash. Craig Tooley got this particular one. The best conditions for seeing a green flash is a clear horizon. So I often see them in the fall and the winter between storms, though there are other times that you can see them. So my philosophy is watch the sunset every night and see what you might see. And you're not being cheated because you're seeing a beautiful sunset. But if you see a green flash, hey, that's great. And it's said to be lucky to see one. And this is a photo that Alan Vinson got of a double green flash, so that's more rare. And I try to keep my eyes open. And what you're looking for is the moment that the sun disappears over the horizon. That's when you're looking for the green flash to appear. And it's very quick. Don't expect a huge flash all the way across the horizon. It's compact, and it only lasts for a second, maybe two. Have you seen one, Amy?
I have just
Awesome.
twice, and only once did I manage to get a photo, and it wasn't this good.
Okay, that's great. Good for you. This is a really rare photo that Ron LaValle caught of the green and then the blue and then the violet green flash. Our eyes will filter out these other colors, only leaving the green. And I don't pretend to understand all the mechanics around that, but Ron was able to photograph more colors on the spectrum. So there's more to a green flash than meets our eyes. This is my rarest photo. Maybe my ground cones. No, this is my rarest photo. This is an optical illusion called a fata morgana. And this is taken by Rich Trissel. He lives up off of Fish Rock Road, and he's seeing buildings in the ocean. This is the ocean, and the ocean was covered in fog. So I'm just amazed that it happened. I have seen a fata morgana once. Rick and I were out on our deck with some visiting friends, and it was the night that we had an electrical storm in the summer, and we never want to see electrical storms here, but somehow the conditions were right to see one, and we looked out and saw buildings. And the thinking is that these are actual refractions from San Francisco. And yeah, so it's really rare. And so always when you're driving down Highway 1, keep an eye out on the horizon, and maybe perhaps you will see one. I mentioned that I was going to be showing this to Carolyn Andre at a get-together we had recently. And I believe Carolyn told me that she saw one on a trip down the highway once. So really rare, all to do with light refraction. And so this is what he first saw, Rich first saw, and then it evolves, it changes. And it looked like there now are trees out there and maybe a big bluff. So just quite the unique happening. Amy's thinking, this is weird. This is weird. Her eyes got big.
I've never even heard of that. That's amazing to see. I'm gonna have to look up more about what makes that happen.
Yeah, it's named after the sorceress Morgana de Fey. Is that how it's called? Something like that. And I just wanted to show you a few beautiful storm clouds. This is quite dramatic with the colors and dropping rain on the ocean. And I took this photo here of a storm cloud. And you know it's going to be raining pretty soon when you see this coming at you. And the sunbeams coming through clouds are called by some people God's rays. I think it's beautiful. And I put this picture in. Roseanne Grunig took it some years ago. I just thought it was so beautiful at Jenner, and of the reflection of the lights in the river, of the Russian River. And she actually made cards out of this and sold her cards of this photo. And then some beautiful sunsets. It seems like every sunset's a little different. And I wanted to show you some photos of lightning in the ocean, quite dramatic when you see it. Beautiful photography. And can you see on the right side, the lights of the fishing boat? They're kind of red. So can you imagine being out in that little boat and having these lightning strikes going on around you? I would have been scared. And this is my penultimate photo to show you tonight. This is a Paul Kozel photo of the Milky Way. He was up on the ridge, and can you see in the upper right, there's a meteor streaking through the sky. And then my last photo for you is one of my favorites by Paul. And he set up at low tide, obviously low tide, in a sea cave and got the Milky Way through the sea cave opening. So I hope you enjoyed my sightings for you today. It was torture to pick the ones to show you and torture to leave off many that I could have shown you, but I hope you enjoy them, and I hope you get out in nature and get some sightings of your own.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeannie.
You're welcome.
We really appreciate the presentation, and I think we all learned something new. I learned a number of new things in your presentation. Of course, I'm pretty new to this area, but thank you for allowing us to have this great presentation. Certainly, the appreciation for these wonderful things are some of the driving forces behind what we do and the people that support us. Gosh, I don't know if I can tell you anything new about the Mendocino Land Trust. You probably all know everything about us, but I'll give you one little thing is that some people don't know that we do a fair amount of restoration. In the last 20 years, we've restored 7 miles of streams for salmon and decommissioned 6 miles of forest roads to control sedimentation. So people don't realize that we usually do a project or two every year on our own preserves and sometimes in the forest. So once again, Jeannie, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming to join us. And we hope to see you next time.
Great.
That was
Take
amazing.
care, everybody.
Thank you, folks. If you're not already on our newsletter list, please go to mendocinolandtrust.org and sign up for our newsletter. Make sure you'll hear about more events like this. And we're starting to do more and more in-person events, trying to do some wildflower hikes this spring. So I'd love to meet a lot of you in person or see you on another Zoom call. Thank you again, Jeannie. That was
You're
amazing.
so welcome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Jeannie.
Welcome.
Hi, Sue Hanson.
Oh.
And Jeannie, people have been saying wonderful things in the chat. I'm going to save the file for you and
Thank
send
you.
it to you.
I see there's 79 messages in there.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Someone was asking after your dog, Sunny, still asleep?
It's Dee Dee who's with me now, and
Oh, Dee Dee, I'm
she's
sorry.
in the kennel. She's in a kennel sleeping. I heard her snoring while I was talking. She's doing just fine. Thank you.
Oh, I really appreciate everyone who made time to come tonight, and especially you, Jeannie.
You're so welcome, Amy. Thanks for putting it together.
Great.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night. Good night, Jeannie.
Bye.
Thanks, Jeannie.
You're welcome.